Hey folks, Job here. Today we'll be taking a look at, in my opinion, some of the best looking rare and unique appearances for the strongest pet families regarding player versus player in patch 8.3, and we'll also touch on how to obtain these pets if you're looking to track them down yourself. This is a follow-up to a previous video that touched on the usefulness of each pet specialization in PvP, as well as the specific pet family abilities that are worth considering for your toolkit in player versus player. If you're interested in finding more of a broad overview, you can find a link to that video in the description below. As a side note, these recommendations should stay relevant as we move towards Shadowlands, as long as there aren't any sort of major overhauls to the pet specializations or pet family systems. At any rate, thanks for tuning in, and let's just go ahead and dive straight into it. To start things out, all of the pets in this video will be cunning specialization. This means they'll all have Master's Call as well as Pathfinding baseline. As mentioned in the previous video, cunning pets are really the way to go regardless of the type of PvP you're looking into. There are certainly use cases for the other two specializations, but not so much in player versus player. So we'll break up the video into categories to keep things organized. So basically we'll go through the rare appearances for the pet families that offer a specific ability, such as Mortal Strike, Slow, and so on. First up, we're going to look at pets offering a slow effect. Specifically, we'll be looking at some of the more unique appearances for birds of prey, dogs, and finally, warp stalkers. We've got a lot of really nice options for pet families that come with the slow, and to start that out, we'll be taking a look at my personal favorite, birds of prey. There are 3 different appearances that stand out above the rest in my opinion, and we'll begin with a newer addition to the tameable pet families, Rookran, the third boss of the Skyreach dungeon from Warlords of Draenor. The great thing about this model is that surprisingly he's not considered an exotic pet, so you can tame him regardless of which hunter spec you prefer. The process of taming Rookran is fairly straightforward these days, as you'll pretty much one-shot everything in here as a max level or near max level character. In order to get started, you'll first want to head over to Skyreach. This is located in the northwestern portion of Spires of Iraq, which is in Outland, the version from Warlords of Draenor, of course, as mentioned before. The dungeon difficulty itself doesn't make a difference at all here, so as soon as you've arrived, you can walk straight into the portal and begin either stealthing through with camouflage, or just AoEing your way through the packs. And the dungeon itself is also fairly linear, so it's difficult to get lost along the way in here. And as I touched on earlier, the content really is so trivial that the boss mechanics never end up coming into play. After killing the first 2 bosses, you'll then head towards the outdoor area of the dungeon, and you'll find Rookran in the very first area, right after clearing out the few trash mobs spread around the platform. And as soon as you clear the platform of all the birds flying around, you can simply begin the encounter by casting Tame Beast, and really there's not anything more to it than that. It's a great looking model for a non-exotic pet, though sometimes watching it run around on foot can look a little bit funky after a while. This appearance is also available from the world boss Rookmar that patrols around the spires outside of the dungeon. However, it's likely quicker to just run through Skyreach, as it took maybe a total of 2 minutes to reach Rookran. Not to mention that Rookmar also has a chance to drop a mount, the Solar Spire Hawk. So I'd personally recommend just downing the world boss and taming the one located in the dungeon. The next 2 birds of prey we'll be looking at are similar in a lot of ways, and they're definitely my 2 favorite pet appearances to run within PvP. So we're speaking about both Olm the Wise and the Jade Spirit. Both are sort of a spectral looking owl, with Olm the Wise being a translucent blue, whereas the Jade Spirit of course is a translucent green. The model texture between the 2 varies as well, as Olm has more of a traditional feathered look, whereas the Jade Spirit has sort of a armor-plated look to it. With that being said, to track down Olm the Wise, we'll want to head over to Felwood to start. Olm is going to be located in the far northern portion of the zone, just south of the Furbolg village that leads over to Winterspring. While Olm is a rare spawn, the timer isn't really prohibitively long, and the patrol radius really isn't too large. Even so, he patrols quite slowly either way. As with the vast majority of the pets in this video, there aren't any sort of special considerations to be made when taming Olm. If that is the case moving forward with any of the other pets, I'll be sure to make it a point to touch on that going forward. As for the Jade Spirit, this is actually even easier than tracking down Olm was, as this isn't even technically a rare spawn. The Jade Spirit is located within the southwestern portion of Stone Talon Mountains, right around the ruins of Eldrathar. Once you arrive, you'll pretty quickly notice that they're absolutely everywhere, so really just pick one that's in an easier location to tame, as some do patrol beyond the range of Tame Beast. And just like Olm the Wise, the Emerald Spirit maintains its translucent appearance even after taming, which is pretty great for a non-exotic pet, similar to Rookran, and that's kind of the theme of the pets in this video. A lot of them have appearances similar to that of exotic pets, but of course you can tame them either as survival or marksmanship, which is nice. Next up in the category for pet families with slows, we've got dogs. While you don't typically see a whole lot of hunters running around with a dog as their primary pet these days, they do have a couple of really good looking appearances that are somewhat unique to the area that they're found in. Both of the dogs we'll be looking at are found in the old Tin Man version of Karazhan, and even though you can find other ghost hounds throughout Azeroth, these actually seem to be quite a bit more transparent than their counterparts found outside of old Karazhan. Of course, to get started here, you'll want to head down to Deadwind Pass towards the main entrance of Karazhan. Again, we're looking to enter through the front here, not through the back entrance, which now serves as a portal to the newer 5-man version of Karazhan, introduced in Legion. After we enter the raid, we'll be heading straight to the right as we enter through the main door, and we'll make our way through the first few animal quarters until we run into the room where both the Face Hounds and the Shadow Beasts reside. The Face Hound is actually the only tameable appearance for dogs that has white fur, and on top of that, of course, it maintains the unique appearance even after being tamed. The Shadow Beasts have more of a greenish blue tint to them, and they also retain the transparent look once tamed. Neither of these models are particularly difficult to tame, though most of them will pull the pack near them when initiating. That being said, this really is inconsequential as we outlevel the content here so greatly. Finally, for the pet families coming with slows, we've got a single Warp Stalker appearance that is much more eye-catching than the rest, Umbralis. Umbralis is a unique Warp Stalker model, coming with a sort of void-touched appearance, and can be found in Makarit. This is the last zone that you'll come across when progressing through the Argus storyline from Legion. You'll want to head over to the western portion of the map to start. This will end up being just to the left of the seat of the Triumvirate. Keep a close eye out once you arrive, as Umbralis will be a rare spawn located within a cave just below the surface. The respawn timer here is fairly short, so just look out for the indicator on your minimap to assist. Though Umbralis is a bit higher level than the rest of the pets in this video, max level characters should once again have no trouble at all going for this appearance, and just like the rest, the void touched look remains even after taming. In the next category, we've got a few nice options for unique appearances featuring a Mortal Strike debuff. The pet families on offer here will be Hyenas, Raptors, and Rodents. While you can of course find pets outside of these specific families that'll get the job done, these in my opinion are the standouts. Starting off, we'll be heading straight back into Makarit for our first pet. That's going to be the Shadow-Crazed Marsul of the Rodent pet family. While not quite as void-touched as Umbralis was, the effect itself is quite different altogether, and I think it actually looks quite nice. Continuing from where we last left off, we'll want to head down just a bit towards the southwestern portion of the zone. Once you arrive in this area, you'll see the Shadow-Crazed Marsuls scattered all throughout the ruins of Orinar, and you can just clear out the hostile NPCs around them prior to taming them without a whole lot of fuss. This is the last time I'll mention it, but of course, this appearance remains the same after taming as well. Next up, in the Mortal Strike category, we'll be taking a look at the Raptor pet family. While the Raptor does have a lot of variation in model choice, most of the options are fairly ordinary looking relative to some of the other appearances on offer. With that, the first Raptor we'll be looking at is unique in that it shares an appearance with a mount rather than another tameable pet. That's going to be the Saddled Orange Raptor from Draktheron Keep. The process for taming this model is a bit more involved than most of the others in this video, so we'll quickly run through the steps involved. Firstly, we'll want to head over to Draktheron Keep in Northrend. This will be on the border between Northern Grizzly Hills and Southern Zuldrak. Once you navigate to the dungeon itself, we'll begin by either sneaking through or AoEing through, as we did in Skyreach, and it's all pretty straightforward up to the second boss, Novos the Summoner. While this isn't a challenging fight in any regard, it does require a bit of patience while you wait for the crystal handlers to spawn. You'll need to kill 4 of these total before you're able to damage the boss Novos himself. Once this is done, you'll continue through the dungeon towards the outside area, and as soon as you get there, you'll see a mounted troll NPC patrolling this first area. Important to note, you'll only want to attack the NPC once. This will cause the troll itself to die, and their mount will become active as a separate NPC. After being careful to not kill the raptor itself, though don't worry too much if you do, there's another one just a bit further up through the dungeon, you can simply begin casting Tame Beast to secure this fairly unique model. As somewhat of an honorable mention, I'm also a big fan of the dark green Draenor Raptor, even though it's not really a rare or particularly unique appearance. Even still, this raptor has an awesome color to it, and it's definitely still eye-catching. If you want to track one down, you can head to the southern portion of Gorgrond, and you'll find them just a bit further down from the Beastwatch flight point. Finally, for Mortal Strike pets, we'll take a quick look at the purple hyena. While similar to the green Draenor Raptor as far as not necessarily being a rare or unique appearance, it's my personal favorite from the hyena pet family, and it does look pretty great since the old hyena model was updated. With that, the easiest place to track down this appearance would be in Tanaris. Specifically, we'll want to head towards the southern portion of the zone, just to the west of the Gaping Chasm. As mentioned before, these are not technically rare, so you should really have no issues finding or taming one. Lastly, to round out the video, we'll take a look at just a couple of unique appearances for pet families that provide an offensive dispel. Specifically, the pet families we'll cover will be Moths, or one moth in particular I should say, and then we'll briefly go over the newer Sporebat model introduced in Warlords of Draenor. Diving straight into it, we'll look at Dustwing. While this moth doesn't come with any sort of special particle effects like most of the other pets in this video, it's unique due to it being the only moth in the game with this particular combination of wing and body color. To track Dustwing down, we'll head down to the island off the southwestern coast in Hillsbrad Foothills. I personally was able to find Dustwing hovering just a bit above the ground on the northeastern tip of the island, so we were able to get the tame by just positioning ourselves on top of a nearby hill. While this model doesn't have any particularly flashy particle effects to speak of, it is a nice option when you consider how limited the offerings can be when it comes to dispel pets. And finally, to lead us out to the end of the video, we'll take a quick look at the Sporebat model that was introduced in Warlords of Draenor, as mentioned before. It's a little bit odd because the old Sangermarsh model was actually updated too, but this is an entirely different subspecies of Sporebat, so to speak. At any rate, you'll want to head over to the northeastern portion of Shadowmoon Valley. Again, this is the Warlords of Draenor version, not the Burning Crusade version, though the lack of Felfire should have given that away by now. Alright, so that's going to do it for this round of rare and unique pet appearances. We'll likely come back to this topic at some point, as there's really too much to go over in one video, and we've really just scratched the surface with the pet families and ability categories we looked at here. Of course, there's lots of great new pets being introduced in Shadowlands to look forward to, as well as the entire exotic pet category that we don't have access to as Survival or Marksmanship. With that being said, if you've stuck with me this far, thank you again for taking the time to do so, and as always, feel free to subscribe for more of this type of content moving forward. Also, don't hesitate to leave some feedback if you think I missed anything, or if you just enjoyed the video overall. As a side note, this video did end up taking a bit longer than expected to get out for various reasons, so apologies for that. Expect to see at least a couple new videos each month, and of course the frequency will increase as we move closer and closer towards Shadowlands. Anyways, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.